Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. It's time. Gishki Spright is here, and we are rocking it here on day one. Not day one, the time this video is going up, but the time I'm recording this, we are, much like my last deck profile, still about 8 hours out from when the pack released. So this was the first Gishki Spright list that we decided to test. I say we because we did these first games as well as the pack opening all in a Twitch stream, again, right when the pack dropped. It was a lot of fun, actually. If you're interested in checking out future streams, just go ahead and look at the description below. You will find a link to my Twitch page where you can give me a follow to get notifications of when my streams drop. You can also check me out over on Twitter, where I post my stream schedule every single week. But this is our initial build that we did for Gishki Spright. It's a little bit different. I don't have the frog engine included in here. I think I just doubled up on Red and Carrot and played, I think, Gamma Burst. Those were the 3 cards. So it's a little bit different than that initial build I showed. Now that I think more about it and have played with it a little bit, I probably should just include the frog engine, so I'll probably end up making room for that. I'd like to make room for some tech as well, but the deck space is a little bit tight. For the main deck here. But for those who haven't seen it, I did a video a little over a week ago, I think at this point, called Let's Talk About Gishki Spright, where I talk about the build very generally, the deck, and I show some very basic combo lines. So I'll link that in the description below, and if you're interested in seeing those basic combo lines, definitely check that video out, because the games here that we got are a lot more back and forth, and none of them are necessarily, from what I recall, going to be showing off a standard uninterrupted combo line. But we'll show off some good duels nevertheless. So the way that this deck works, the general gist of it, is that we're using a whole bunch of the new Gishki cards. 3 of the 4, we're using Grimness, Focalized Aquamirror, and Evigishki Neremanas. Focalized Aquamirror in particular is really good because it can grab us not only the Gishki Grimness to start our plays, but during the end phase we can banish it from our yard and set the Aquamirror Illusion, which will allow us to get an extra special summon for the Neremanas. I say extra because what the Evigishki Neremanas does is, by bouncing itself, or any Gishki ritual monster, but it's the only one we play, so by bouncing itself back to our hand, we can negate the activation of an opponent's monster effect, and if we do that, we can shuffle that monster back into the deck. Very, very powerful. So during our regular turn 1 combo line, we ritual summon this, and then again, if we use Focalized Aquamirror during the end phase, we can set the illusion again. So Neremanas will negate an effect, bounce itself back to the hand, shuffle that card back, and then we can use Aquamirror Illusion to summon it again and do the same thing again. Because although this does say once per turn, that is a soft once per turn, meaning it is once per copy per turn. So once we've bounced this and resummoned it, it's a new copy, we get the effect again. Speaking of effects that aren't necessarily once per turn, Gishki Abyss is kind of the star of the Gishki engine here, as this card gets you to search a Gishki monster with 1,000 or less defense, which is all the main deck monsters we run except for the Neremanas. And you might be noticing that this card lacks any form of once per turn text. So our main combo line summons this twice per turn. You can summon this 3, and if you really want to, even sometimes 4 times in a turn. And you get a search every single time you summon this. So that's pretty good. We are also playing 2 of each Gishki Vision and Shadow. These are often going to be what you search off of the Abyss, and they respectively allow you to discard themselves to grab either a Gishki Ritual monster or Gishki Ritual spell. Speaking of the Gishki Ritual spells, we have 2 of them here, regular Gishki Aquamirror and Gishki Photomirror. A lot of the time you'll be using Gishki Photomirror to pay 5,000 life points, which is a lot, but it is worth it to summon out the Neremanas. But you can also use the Gishki Aquamirror because Shadow, Vision, and Grimness all have an effect that say, if you're ritual summoning a water ritual monster, you can use them as the entire tribute, which is pretty cool. So the Aquamirror, you can also use like another copy of Neremanas to ritual summon the Neremanas, and then you can use Aquamirror's effect to shuffle it from graveyard to deck to return that extra Neremanas to your hand. Also worth considering for sure. But beyond the Gishki plays, like once we ritual summon the Neremanas, after that, we pretty much just do regular Spright stuff because we'll be ending on multiple level 2 monsters. So as you can see, the extra deck is pretty much the same as what a kind of pure Spright extra deck would be, because the Gishki cards do not have necessarily any extra deck monsters. Although I will say, one card that I didn't have for this climb that I should have put in that was brought to my attention by, I believe it was 8bots over on the Discord. Let me actually double check that just to make sure I'm giving the right person credit here. Oh, hang on. Where was it? I think I'm looking in the wrong channel here. Yes, it was 8bots. Okay. And, oh, I have the card's name now, too, so I can just search it that way. It's actually a card that just came out in this pack. It's, oh, I already have a playset. I pulled it. Dynamondo. Dynamondo is a link to that summoned using 2 monsters, including a ritual monster. And you won't always necessarily want to link off Neremanas and another monster into this, but you can potentially do that to shuffle back a card from your graveyard, a ritual monster, and then a card on the field as well. And then during your opponent's turn, you can also special summon ritual monsters in your graveyard, which you have if you have the Neremanas in there, you could potentially special this during your opponent's turn, and then be able to bounce cards again, which is pretty cool. So definitely worth considering, and I think I'm going to try to squeeze it into my extra deck just to see how much I like it. But huge shout out to 8bots over on the Discord, which if you're interested in joining, you can find a link in the description below for pointing out that tech. But alright, now that I've covered all of that, let's go ahead and break this list down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay. So for this particular build, we're on 2 Gishki Abyss, 3 Maxx, 2 Gishki Vision, 2 Spright Blue, 1 Spright Jet, 2 Spright Red, 2 Spright Carrot, 3 Gishki Grimness, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Gishki Shadow, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Evigishki Neremanas, 3 Focalized Aquamirror, 1 Gishki Aquamirror, 1 Gishki Photomirror, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Gamma Burst, 1 Spright Smashers, 1 Aquamirror Illusion, and then 2 Infinite Impermanence. For the extra deck, we're rocking 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigantic Spright, 1 number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Salamangreat Almirasj, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Spright Sprind, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and then 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. There's our list. Let's see some gameplay. Alright, our first opponent here is going to be on Mathmech. I think they're on a Code Talker package specifically with the microcoder and also the level 3 one that can be used from hand as well. So, we're going to be going first here. And we got the Gishki Abyss plus the Spright Red, which is pretty cool. I'm going to start with the Gishki Abyss, but unfortunately we did get hit with the Effect Veiler. So, that is definitely a bit of a downer. I'm going to use the Call By here, but I had a good old-fashioned feeling this was a bait mid-game, like when I was actually playing the game, and sure enough it was, because our opponent ends up having a Maxx. So that's pretty rough, but at the very least, I will say this much, we did get our opponent 2 cards down, and on top of that, we still get the Surge because we did negate the Veiler, so I can get a Grimness for next turn. On top of that, I don't mind throwing out a Spright Red here, because I have another one in hand, and I can just use it with the Grimness next turn. So, opponent's still starting 1 card down overall. We didn't lose card advantage overall, and we have a red to interrupt, and we also have a Nibiru as well. So, you know, honestly, things could definitely be worse here, for sure. Opponent's going to move on to their turn with the Lady Debug here. Lady Debug is going to add the Mathmech Sigma. Sigma is going to special itself, and then Gachiri Adagnister is going to get summoned. So Almirasj is going to get activated here, and at this point I'm going to use my Spright Red's effect. I decided to use Spright Red against Almirasj. I did consider waiting for the, what is it called, the Mathmech Circular. I thought there was maybe a chance that could come down, but at this point our opponent only has 2 unknown cards because we know one of the cards in hand is Microcoder, and I thought it was pretty unlikely that one of those 2 cards was going to be Circular. Here's the other thing too, even if they do happen to have a Circular in hand, it's still not bad that we negate Almirasj because then we stop them from adding an equation for some more extension or a super factorial for follow-up. So that's why I decided to negate the Almirasj with the Spright right here. I figured this was probably the best choke point. Alright, so opponent is going to link the Almirasj with a Code Generator that's in their hand to summon a Code Talker. The Code Generator will allow them to send the Dotscaper directly from deck to grave, and then Dotscaper will allow it to special summon itself from the graveyard right to the field. So at this point, my opponent has definitely hit over 5 summons, and I definitely want to drop the Nibiru here. Might seem kind of obvious, but at the same time, I do feel the need to point out why I'm dropping Nibiru here. Specifically because, again, my opponent's got very few cards in hand. At this point, they only have 2. I know one of them is Microcoder, which doesn't do anything by itself. So if my opponent is like a god of foresight and they actually kept Circular as the last card, which is not unreasonable, it's not like the most unlikely that's what's going on here, then they will still be able to have plays. But I figured that, you know, if they don't have a follow-up here, then we're definitely good to go. So if they don't have exactly Circular here. So here comes Nib. Nib is going to come down, and the Nib token, I'm actually going to put in attack mode because it has 2,500 attack points. Also, the Gachiriad Ignister does have the opportunity to make it unaffected. So I don't want my opponent to have an unaffected monster with a lot of defense points that I can't battle over and, you know, can't out the token. So again, token in attack mode here. Even though my opponent does the ability to attack, it is weaker than the Nibiru. And at this point, my opponent's going to concede right as my turn starts. I mean, they know I have a Gishki Grimness in my hand. They saw me search it last turn, and that by itself is already enough for plays, but we've also got an additional Spright monster in hand here, which is pretty rad. So, hell yeah, we have a lot of ability to make plays. And the timing of the Nibiru, again, I do think was pretty important there. Generally, just keeping in mind what our opponent has and what they don't have, and kind of using that to assess when the best time to make the plays are, I think was kind of the epitome of this duel here against Mekk-Knight. So there's that one. Let's go and take a look at the next game here. All right, for this duel, we have a mirror match. It's going to be Gishki Spright versus Gishki Spright. I was actually a little surprised to run into another Gishki Spright, but I guess it wasn't the most unlikely thing in the world. Like I talked about in the last deck profile, I did not see a lot of Kashtira opponents, honestly. I saw like 2 total. One of which was one of the duels we saw last time, and one of which I played against here, and it was a very boring game. They went first, they did a full combo, I didn't have disruptions, so, you know. Didn't think it was noteworthy, really, here. So here our opponent's definitely going to go off, getting the Neremanas, and doing so with the Abyss here. At the very least, you know, if we're not going to see me summon a bunch of Gishki monsters, we at least get to see our opponent do it in this particular duel. And as you can see in this example here, the Gishki line is very easily able to play very well into the Maxx, as our opponent has set up multiple monster negates that also shuffle the target back, because that's what Neremanas does. And remember, with this Aquamirror Illusion they just set, they can special Neremanas from their hand and then just do it again, because this is a soft once per turn. So pretty cool that this gives Spright a way to play around Maxx. I will say this, I'll kind of forewarn about this here. A couple of the games that we lost while playing on ladder were because we got hit with a Droll and Lockbird. This is a Spright variant that is uniquely very susceptible to Droll and Lockbird because it does a lot of searching. So do keep that in mind as you're playing this deck. Going to activate the Focalized Aquamirror. I think we actually do get hit with a Droll here. Or is that a different game? That's a different game I'm thinking of. Oh, I want to talk about this for a second. Because I normal summoned Gishki Abyss and not the Grimness that I just searched, which seems kind of weird. And I also didn't activate Abyss's effect, which also probably seems pretty weird. In hindsight, I definitely should have saved the Focalized Aquamirror. I searched Grimness before thinking about the Neremanas effect, and I realized, oh, if I use my normal summon and activate Grimness, Neremanas is going to negate and shuffle it back, and then I can't special summon the Carrot in blue in my hand. So after doing the add is when I realized, oh, what I need to actually do here is normal summon Abyss, not activate the effect, and then I can special my Spright monsters. I can activate blue, and if that gets put back by Neremanas, you know, fine. Which is actually what's going to end up happening here. But in this case, I at the very least still have multiple level 2 monsters on the board, and I'm able to make plays. Gonna link off the Abyss and the Carrot to go for the Spright Elf. Opponent's going to activate the Aquamirror Illusion. I'm going to chain the Spright Elf and just grab Carrot here. Not going to grab Abyss because, again, the Neremanas can negate and shuffle that back. But by grabbing Carrot, and I'll just summon Carrot in defense mode, what I can do here is just battle over the Abyss with Elf, and then just pass back to my opponent. Neremanas will get bounced back to their hand, and yeah, they're going to have to pretty much be in top deck mode at this point. They did have a Gishki Grimness, but as soon as I Ash Blossom to negate that, they're going to concede because they don't have any more follow-up plays, which is really good for me because if they had even, any Spright monster, that would have been enough for them to just completely go off, and I would have just lost here. But thankfully, the Ash Blossom against the Grimness did ultimately end up being enough in this particular situation, and yeah, nice duel showing off not only a mirror match, but how this deck can make some more nuanced plays against something like a Maxx or against something like an opposing Neremanas, on our opponent's side and then our side, respectively. So there is that duel. Let's go and take a look at the next one here. All right, this next duel will be against Ninja. Seeing lots of Ninja on ladder, I think, as the anticipated Kashtira matchup, or a deck that's good against Kashtira for the anticipated matchup. I also realize, it is still very early on, so maybe one of the reasons we didn't see as many Kashtira decks is because they're just so expensive to build, which would also explain why there's so many Ninja decks in turn, because they're so cheap to build, and they're good against cash. So, Poe's going to start off by linking into the Ninja Grandmaster Saizo, and as soon as that tries to set one of the ninjutsu arts, I'm definitely just going to go ahead and imperm that. Do not want them to be able to search out, their good stuff. They will set a couple of cards before passing back over to us. I can normal summon the Gishki Grimness here and activate the effect. They do have an Ash Blossom, but I have a Crossout Designator handy for that, so we get to go ahead and just fire that off here. Poe's got a Book of Moon in response that will turn the Grimness face down, but thankfully will not negate it, so we can still use the Grimness effect in order to special summon the Abyss here. Alright, Gishki Abyss effect is activating. I'll add a Vision. Gonna normal summon, special summon Spright Jet to add Gamma Burst for a potential OTK. Activating the Vision effect, but my opponent's going to have the Called By. And unfortunately, that's going to stop me from being able to make any ritual plays because even if I link these two off and then Special Abyss off of Elf, right? Searching of their Vision won't do me any good because it's negated through this turn and the next one. So I am still going to link for Elf, though, and I am still actually going to use Elf to get back Abyss, because even though I can't, do the Vision, I can still set up a Grimness for a potential follow-up turn if need be. Going to overlay into the Gigantic Spright here. Gigantic Spright's going to activate the effect to grab the blue. I'll use blue to grab myself a Spright Red, and my opponent concedes at this point. I'm trying to think of, I had an OTK line here. I'm sure I did with the Gamma Burst because the opponent's Ninja card on their field is a link to, so it would also have its stats boosted, but can I just go for like an Onibimaru Soul Sweeper and banish it? Like, yeah, that seems easy enough. So, not too hard to find lethal there, methinks. We have one more game to show off. Let's go straight into that here. Alright, our last opponent is going to be on Mikanko. This was actually, I talked about this during the last video, how I played against multiple Mikanko decks that wanted to go first. This was actually another one of them. Alright, so we opened a couple of Gishki Grimness, not too bad, as well as the Maxx and the Crossout, so we're looking relatively solid here. Opponent's going to Diviner, send Herald. Herald will add the Ohime, the Manifested Mikanko, which will activate actually a different copy, because that one's Royal, and the one they added wasn't. But they'll just discard the other one. Great Mikanko Ceremony. We'll special summon the Ohime. Drawing an Neremanas off of that. Alright, looks like they are going to summon again the Huli this time. Drawing a Spright Jet. A couple of very good draws there. Alright, they're going to add and then presumably set the Mikanko Rivalry before passing back over to us. Trying to Maxx during our draw phase, but I'm going to Crossout Designator that. Using Crossout here because it's the more narrow response as opposed to Ash Blossom, right? And alright, I'm going to start by normal summoning the Gishki Grimness. Opponent is going to flip up that Mikanko Rivalry. That will allow them to equip it with the Axe of Fools, which will negate the summon, but we do get to use the Spright Jet here. I ultimately end up adding Smashers. I thought about getting Starter, though. Opponent's going to Droll us, which, as I said before, Droll can be very detrimental to this deck, as we are no longer able to activate Vision or really do much of anything here in terms of searching, so I decided to try to go for a Zeus line, but totally should have just checked my opponent's graveyard. I just missed that they didn't have the Rondo, or that they had the Rondo in there to take control of my cards, so huge lesson learned. That was the huge misplay of this game. We did not check for the Rondo in the graveyard before making our play. Alright, opponent's going to use the Ohime effect again. I'm going to Ash Blossom this, just hopefully reduce the consistency of my opponent's plays at least a bit here, but I actually should have probably saved it for the Arborist here. I mean, that's the thing. Mekk-Knight has so many different instances where you can Ash Blossom, and it's still difficult for me to know where exactly the best choke point is, depending on the hand or situation or what have you. Because I really just don't have like too much experience playing against the deck, to be totally honest. But like I said, we definitely ran into a couple of Mekk-Knights during this part of the climb here. Something I do think that is pretty cool, though, however, that my opponent's going to end up doing here is they're actually going to OTK me, even though I passed without having any monsters on the field. Because a lot of the time, right, you can end without having any monsters on the board, and you're generally pretty safe from getting OTK'd, but Mekk-Knight has the line here, and as you can see, they're going for it. They're link climbing up into the Knightmare Unicorn, linking that off with the Maxx that they took control of for me to go for the access code talker. Of course, that's going to get bumped up to 5,300, and now they're sinking the Diviner with the Mekk-Knight monster, sinking for 9 for the Power Tool Bravery Dragon here, which is going to equip Meta Silver Armor, Axe of Fools for target protection and attack boost, and it's definitely going to give my opponent enough damage to swing in for lethal. So, yeah, again, my misplay here is not checking the graveyard, but also, you know, it's not uncommon to get OTK'd by Mekk-Knight, but I've never quite been OTK'd by Mekk-Knight this way, so I wanted to show this off because that Power Tool Braver line was pretty sick, I'm not going to lie. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video here, these games. I'm going to keep working on this build and come back to you once I've got a solid update for it. But for the time being, let's just go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.